Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Circular de South, and my name is Stephen Koenig. And Cameron, welcome to one of the Triple Crowns. And I know that you've got a little bit of history with this circuit and, well, the history of this legendary circuit for anyone that doesn't know what Circular de South is.
Well, Steve, you have that right. Circular South is a very special place in the history of motorsport. Now, very few places carry the weight that this track has. Since 1923, this 13.6-kilometer ribbon of closed public roads and permanent circuit has been the ultimate test of man and machine, not just for speed, but for endurance, strategy, and survival also. This is where legends are made, such as the legendary Ford GT40, where in 1966, it battled out with Ferrari and won in the great hands of Ken Miles, as well as many other greats. But Ken Miles is the man that comes to many minds, as you know, if you know the history of that car. And then also, it also produced legends such as Tom Christensen, who has earned the title of Mr. Lamar, having won 9 overall victories. Now, it's not just that. It is also a very powerful circuit. I mean, cars are reaching on this very particular stretch we're seeing now over 400 kilometers an hour. Before they added the chicanes, now it's only just about over 300. But in recent years, it also produced very intense fights, such as Ferrari returning to the top step in 2023 after, get this, 58-year absence, and they haven't looked back, because in 2025, a privateer team, Ferrari AF Corsa, driven by Robert Kubica, Yiffy and Phil Hansen, came and won. And they have repeated it 3 times now, from 2023 all the way into 2025 at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Now today, we're going to be experiencing that same circuit. Every chicane, every flat-out blast down the Mulsanne, and every nerve-shredding Porsche curve sequence. Le Mans doesn't just test you, but it also tests your car. It tests your patience, your focus, and your nerve across the entire lap. Now, Stephen, me and you have driven the circuit before, and we know that it takes a lot out of the driver. How do you experience the circuit on your side?
Well, honestly, it's all about keeping it together and keeping yourself focused, because this track is long to deal with. Your lap times, you're looking upwards of 3 minutes plus in a GT3 car, and these drivers are going to have to make sure they're close enough to their competitors to get the slipstream, make sure they can keep up on their lap times, because if you miss by a second, well, it's a very, very long time before you can make it up under braking, and the drivers are well enough aware of it, especially making their way down the main straight, down that Mulsanne straight that has been so infamous in its time. But at the same time, it's going to be an interesting drive set by all, and each of our drivers will need to really dig deep on this one to find that win, to get that top run, and also to be on a circuit that this was the track that landed up with the GT3s replacing GTE. So there's a lot of history that's been held, especially in the world of tin top racing. But that also being said, let's look at our championship, because that's where it's getting a little bit spicy. If we remember back to Paul Ricard in the last 5 minutes, Cam, I think you and I went through the flippin' roof with all the chaos and back markers coming into play, changing up first place, and it was madness. But let's talk about what isn't too mad. First place, Martin Jacobs. He got a 3rd place in round 1, a 1st place in round 2. Currently holds the top, along with Gerrit Bukes, who was leading the championship. Unfortunately, got a 4th place in round 2, which put him down to 2nd on 59 points, while Martin is sitting with 63 points. 57 points is Jan Blichnight with Brandon Kruger, and Esteban Pretorius following in the top 5. And that's just the top 5.
After that, it has gotten quite closer. The battle for the rest of the pack is close, only separated by maybe 4 to 6 points. So, Stephen, it is not all set in stone just yet. You mentioned Paul Ricard last week. It was chaotic. It went from dry to wet to the leaders having to maneuver through the likes of the back markers. Back markers having to avoiding action to not get involved there. It was a spaghetti bowl full of just carnage. You couldn't untangle what's going on, and it kept me at the edge of my seat and had to force me to replace my seat, because I think I broke it from the times of having to jump up and down on that seat just from it going absolutely nuts.
One time I'm looking at a sit-stand desk, it was definitely after that. But let's take a look at a couple of drivers out on the circuit here tonight at the RaceFace.Pro Round 3 LMU GT3 Championship. It's Gerrit Bukes out on track along with Johan van der Vente. Looks like they've got them all sorted out. Hopefully not sharing the disregard screen anymore. Buerta in third at the moment with Brandon Holthuizen chasing down Jody Sederman, who is hoping to get a good run and finish up this evening. Kirsten Peters, another one that retired in round 2, looking to try and get to the line. Martin Jacobs, who was fighting out with his teammates and brawling left and right, is out on track. Neil Greening as well. And we've got Esteban Pretorius, Paul Fenter, Jeremiah Valatham, Grant Leclerc, Sean Stradham, Johan Gimmel, along with Gerard van der Vente. Going to be seeing if he can get it all the way to the end. And joining up with his brother Carl Lake, a very interesting driver, the rookie that made some big waves on his debut outing. Then we got Johan Bluknoot, Brandon Kruger, Rob van der Heever, along with Rowan Kleinans, Herman Percival, a little bit further down in 21st, Arno Kraus, going and trying to pilot that Chevrolet to the front. We saw some great racing on his pod in round 2. Stanton Augustus, Lucas Joubert, Kobe Turon, along with Chris Collison and Devon Nell coming back into the fray as well.
And that is true, Stephen. And you spoke about the rookie that made waves. I spoke with him throughout this entire week. I just spoke with him how he experienced his first outing pretty much, because he missed round 1 of our LMU Championship. And he said it was absolutely phenomenal and enjoyable. It's his first time competing in the league. So he just absolutely had a full-on blast, and he said he's going to give me a bit of an insight from what he's dealing with inside that car. So I got that a bit on the side monitor for me. So we might have a bit of an insight to what's going on within that garage between himself and his teammate, Herman Percival, which is driving a McLaren of all cars.
It's going to be a very interesting drive, that being said. And a massive welcome to everyone out in the virtual grandstands, sprawled around the circuit here at Circuit de South. It's wonderful to have you out, and I can see the Griffin Sim Racing team already flying those flags very, very high and looking to see their team at the top. However, it's Vietia Buerta, who's for Logistical Nightmare Racing at the top of the charts with a 359.1, with Vietia Buerta close behind with 359.7. Martin Jacobs took the pass there with a 359.197. So Martin Jacobs, Vietia Buerta, Brandon Holthuizen trying to get a little bit more pace. He's currently third with Paul Fenter, Esteban Torres, Jody, Neil, and Jeremiah able to get around, but they're in the 4 minutes, and Kirsten Peters, unfortunately, sitting with a 4:05, along with Sean Stradham, who just came across the line.
Unfortunately, well, some good times going on already in the sub 4 minutes, but we do know that these cars can go faster out there, and it's all about the drivers having to find that limit and get lap times all down and down. But it's not just a small little circuit. It takes concentration to hook up that perfect lap. And we've seen drivers go into, well, sub 55s in some cases, and that is just blistering pace. Don't know if we'll be able to see it out here tonight, but it does look like the Mercedes as well as the BMW is the car to be at. But I do believe I see a little bit of a Lamborghini there in second place with the likes of Brandon Kruger, who is just less than 2/10 behind our current pole sitter, which is in a Mercedes. But Vietia Buerta, after a bit of a disappointing race last week, is hoping to fight back and take it to our RTA teammates out there.
That's certain. So far, the fastest through Sector 1 compared to Martin Jacobs. Bluknoot still going out onto the track, is on his outlap with 4 minutes to go, won't be able to see it through to the end. Brandon Kruger's called it quits. He has got his time on the board, and that's all it can take. Remember, it's a 3 minute, or going on a 4 minute lap time. So if you're going out, you need to ensure that you've got 8 minutes to at least put one lap in. This track is insanely long. Brandon Holthuizen, fastest through Sector 1 and fastest through Sector 2. So looking purple all round for him, and is giving Vietia Buerta a proper chase in his BMW. The two teammates going and vying for the fastest lap. They need to beat a 3 minute 59.1, Cam. We might be able to see a 3:58 coming out of these cars. Temperature is really, really hot out here And the drivers are starting to feel it on those tires. Jan Bloknoot trying to generate some heat into the tires. He's not going to have a lot of time to get a flying lap down. He's going to have to really, really bite his bottom lip to get it happening. Geertje Buerta and Brandon Holthuizen, they're going to be keeping on going. Carl Lake, also a driver to keep an eye on, has been quick through Sector 1, his personal best, and trying to really dial it up to 11 at this point to be into that top 5. And I do think he has a very good chance of it. Paul Venter hoping to get some improvement as well. Recently managed to get power back home after being on the generator for a long time. He's now hoping to also push into the 3-minute 59, join his teammates up top. And only recently has done racing around Le Mans. Do you know that Paul Venter has only raced around Le Mans once? So this would be his second time out around Le Mans, full stop. And he's hoping that it's going to work. I can't believe that.
No, yeah, Steve, I can't believe that. Le Mans isn't really a circuit that is featured on many sims. You do get around our Gran Turismo simulator as well as the iRacing side, but I do believe that other than those two, this and some mods in ACC or in Justice or Corsa, other simulator, LMU is the other only simulator that has this circuit officially scanned into it and runs this runs the events that we can see around it. But it is quite it's a very beautiful circuit, Steve. And as we already see there in the virtual grandstand, Tina's saying he absolutely fell in love with the circuit. It's a circuit that takes a special type of person to absolutely love it and appreciate the beauty of it, not just from viewing it, but also from racing it. And I hope, and I do really hope that many of the drivers out there today fall in love with it, and we get to see more action on it, because many of these drivers haven't experienced the beauty that is the circuit velocity.
Well, Sean Stratum puts himself on the top with a 3:58.0, beating out Martin Jacobs with a 3:59.1. Stratum putting the Porsche back on top. A 2025 winner of Le Mans, Porsche, now back on top, chasing down. Unfortunately, Martin, who has fallen a little bit from grace at the moment, is down to 3rd place with Geertje Buerta in 4th. Brandon Kruger out on circuit, has not been able to get a time on the board that will push him out of 5th position, but is at risk of dropping further down if he can't go and dial it up for the next minutes and 14 seconds. I think if you haven't got your way through to the next set of S's, out of the Porsche curves, out of Chevrolet, you are in for a world of hurt. Carl Lake up in Sector 1, down in Sector 2, trying to get the drive, and it looks like he's not very quick on this run. Taking a nice gentle drive and aiming for pit lane.
So about that, so I had a quick look, listen over to the team radio. It looks like they were running, quite congested on the track. Too many cars close to one another, and he didn't have a clean piece of circuit in front of him. So the team told him, back off a bit, get a piece of clean track in front of you, just some clean air, and then go for it. And I believe that's why we saw him slow down so much in the second, as well as in the final sector. And he's absolutely putting on a fly lap now and hoping to improve on the time where he is. But here we have the mighty Lexus, one of the older generation cars compared to the newer younglings around him, still showing he's got what it takes to fight out around it as he shoots through the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight, and is now heading toward that little short burst before they hit the second one. And yes, I know pretty much, I know some of the names of the circuit, but of course, as you go along the time, you invent your own little names. As you'll find out some of us sometimes we just call a certain corner Fuddy Duddy. That's a special corner, and it's kind of a funny one for me and Steven due to some reasons.
Fuddy Duddy, also known as Indianapolis, and it's phenomenal to see drivers giving everything they can. Esteban Pretorius done his personal best in the middle sector. He's lying in 12th at the moment, hoping to get into the top 10. Got to get ahead of Paul Venter and Rowan Kleinhunt at the moment. Sean Stratum is content with his lap. Karabukas, along with Martin Jacobs, has finished up their laps. Geertje Buerta is out on a lap. Brandon Kruger is content on his. Jan Bloknoot is out on his lap as well. So we've got a couple of drivers that are not out on circuit. They content. That's what they've had, and will be sticking where they are at this stage of the game. And I got to say, it's going to be a great one. There's also, we've got to talk about out there in the world of our virtual grandstands. Quite a few people going and cheering on from the fans, but Cam, you're also getting a bit of love there as well.
Yeah, so it's good to see some of the old names from sim racing popping in and keeping an eye and just seeing how it's going. They shout out to Alaric Einstein, also known as Alti, and then also my not BMW, my old McLaren brother from all the world of ACC tuning in to support his teammate and also just keeping an eye on what's going on here in the LMU side. But yeah, I mean, it's great to see some fans in virtual grandstand, Stephen, but it's also not just for me, but it's also for you, as we do have Jason Farmer saying there, how's it, Stephen and Cameron, as he is going to cheer on the likes of Stingers Racing.
Yeah, it's all about the Griffin Sim Racing, the Stingers. It's about RTA, LNR, and the bunch. Paul Fenter up into 8th place, pushing Esteban Pretorius down into 9th. Bluffnote, who currently holds on to 6th place, is looking to charge his way up through the field. Now, young Bluffnote was one of the chaps that has fought down the championships and always sat within the top 3 and has always started in the top 5 every time he's got onto LMU. This would be a first time he would be out of the top 5 if he's not able to improve his lap time. So far, a good first and second sector. Last lap time was a 3:59.5. He needs to get to a 3:58 if he wants to be able to contend with our top 5 at the moment. Brandon Kruger did a 3:59.3, and that is a difficult one to try and shave off. Everyone above him is into the 58. Oh, so close to the track limits there. Was able to bring it back. The BMW fighting left, right, and center. And up, threw it into the wall. That's it. He's called it. And unfortunately, yeah,
not what he would have wanted, but Carl Lake still up in his first sector, but down in his second sector from the time he has reset. Now he needs to chuck it through the Ford chicane, but unfortunately, I did just catch a bit of news. He invalidated it on the exit of karting, so unfortunately, not able to improve on the time, and it has to be an invalid lap time for our rookie driver in the Porsche, starting all the way at 13th. But Steve, it is also something to remember. At Le Mans, it does not matter where you start. It is such a long circuit, a lot of bump drafting, even though in LMU you do get a bit of penalized for that. But for in LMU, slipstream is also a good factor, especially down Mulsanne straight. Drivers are able to gain more speed over the cars in front of them and get alongside into the chicane, hoping to make a move on them. So even you might be starting a bit down on where you want to be, but you can always fight your way back, especially in the race that is quite long.
That's it, and the drivers are going to have to really work their way through it now to make sure they can stay at the top. The question is, who is going to stay at the top as we take a look at our starting order when it comes up as drivers get ready? It's Sean Stratham along with Kerry Pukas, Viertia Buerta, Martin Jacobs in 4th, Brandon Kruger along with Johan Bluchnote, Herman Percival lying in 6th. 7th place is... Herman is sitting in 7th. 8th is Paul Fenter, followed by Ruben Kleinans, Esteban Pretorius, Chris Collison, Brandon Holthazen, along with Carl Lake. Jody Cinnamon down in 14th. Stanley Augustus, Toby Theron, Jeremiah Valatham, Arno Kraus, Rob van der Heever, Neil Greening, Jan Grimal, and Jan van der Venter in 22nd. Sam Peters down in 23rd, along with Gerald van der Venter, Devon Nell, Lucas Joubert, and Grant Leclerc, rounding out the pack, racing here tonight and looking to be at the top of the field. But they are getting ready. This is going to be a very, very short formation lap. They are not doing the length of the circuit here, so it's all about getting those brakes and tires up to temperature as quick as you can behind the safety car at 70 kilometers an hour. And you can't go and drop out of the bracket as well, otherwise you risk going and suffering a starting infringement penalty that will be put on. So a couple of things you've got to really keep a very close eye on to ensure that you're staying at the top.
It's a driver starting all the way out in the exit of the karting corner, and they will make their, entering into the Porsche curves, apologies, and then making their way through karting, and then finally the last little section of the Corvette kink and then it's the final little run-up all the way towards the start-finish line, so they will have to go through the Motorsport chicane and forward chicane. So the drivers will have a very short distance to get the tires fired up as well as their brakes, because it's a very long run ever since they crossed the start-finish line all the way into the Dunlop curve, which isn't really a sharp corner. It's just of a sweeping right hand, and then it's hard on the brake into Dunlop chicane, which will, I believe it's beginning of this year, be changed to the Goodyear chicane or the Michelin chicane.
Michelin.
All the way, new tire.
Going to Michelin.
All the way, new tire sponsor. Goodbye Dunlop Bridge. I'm gonna miss you. Some beautiful shots over that one. But enough of sad stop stories. I'm gonna hand this over to our lights controller as well as our flag controller Tim to make sure the drivers are ready to go. They are lined up side by side, traditional GT3 or just sports car racing format as they get ready to see the lights go green.
Yep, double file, and you've got to keep in the train. This is also going to be interesting because you can try and move the train forward by a little bit of assistance, and at the moment we have got a teammate lockout on the first and second, hitting from the first and third car. That are two teammates that can not argue with each other, they can work. Gerrit Bucas, however, has got Virtia Buerta and Martin Jacobs to deal with, who are a little bit further back, who aren't really there to back him up at all. So he's got to worry about getting mugged a little bit as our drivers make their way through. It is time to get ready. Flag at the ready. Lights on, lights on, lights on. And away they go racing here at Le Mans for round 3 as they charge their way down. It is a neck-and-neck battle through the right-hand sweep, but it is going to be Sean Stratham pushing ahead, who's able to go and cause a little bit of a block, forcing Gerrit to go to the outside. Late on the brakes, Martin Jacobs, Virtia Buerta, all fighting it out. Looks like Paul Ricard going out a little bit late on the brakes. Brandon Holzhazen didn't quite come out exactly where he wanted to be. Gerrit down into second, immediately holds back Virtia Buerta. Martin Jacobs has got his teammate Brandon Kruger and Blythnote all over the back of him. Paul Ricard trying to close up the distance as well with Johan Kleinans, Esteban Torres, Herman Percival, and Carl Lake a little bit further down. And for Herman, who was 6 laps down in round 2, he's actually glad to be on the starting line with the rest of the field.
It is absolutely teammate carnage up there. As I already see a BMW taking on a BMW. It's RTA versus LNR side by side through Tete Rouge, going to the first chicane of Mulsanne. Who's going to be bravest on the brakes? Already door to door. Overlap established. Is it going to be the RTA car of Johan Blythnote being the bravest? Side by side, no contact just yet. Gonna share the corner. Very, very brave. Very gutsy. But decides better, Blythnote backs out. Paul Ricard takes that position for himself as they exit the first chicane and now start the second run all the way to the second chicane.
Bucas moving left to right, trying to get some heat in the tyres and break the toe. However, that's just slowed him up for an absolute mugging because Virtia Buerta and Brandon Kruger are also making their way through. But that is Gerrit Bucas, who's got a problem with Jacobs going on the right-hand side. Virtia going and dives on the inside. Unfortunately, outbrakes himself, gets thrown round. Oh, a little bit of elbow contact there. And that's going to allow Martin to get immediately back into the toe. He's pulling himself along. No room to go. He's trying to figure out where this is all going to turn out. It is turning into a fight of note. And Gerrit Bucas, unfortunately, now in a bit of a hot seat, heading down to the bottom of Mulsanne. He's on a little bit of a rough streak now. Nowhere to really filter back in if he tries on the brakes. It's going to be Martin carrying the run through and just Virtia Buerta giving that little bit of room for him to breathe. But drivers all nose to tail and Sean Stratham getting a lot of breathing room up at the front.
Forgot to mention Stephen, all at the front, Sean Stratham already taking advantage of the carnage his teammate is causing by putting a 2-second gap here. But take a look at this. Porsche on Porsche. Carl Lake versus Jody Sederman. But Carl Lake seems to have the better run out of Mulsanne corner, going down the Mulsanne, going down this little straight and then into Indianapolis corner and be hard on the brakes. Positive camber, meaning that they will have the benefit of turning in and then hard on the brakes again for Arnage as they start their run onto the Porsche curves. Now, take a look at the Grand Slam era. As I mentioned, the GT3s are very, very sketchy going into the Porsche curves. it's due to the fact that you have to be very cautious with the cars as the weight shifts. So it has to be managed through braking and throttling. You have to place the car perfect to get a smooth run throughout the corner. Otherwise, you might get the walk off the corners. The ball in the Porsche curves comes up to you quite close, and you can damage the suspension if you hit it right or if you hit it wrong there. As you see here, Chris Collison trying to get as close as possible, well, trying to pull away there from Germano Vallata. And no, it's Lamborghini on Lamborghini. So two Italian manufacturers, the same manufacturer, two different teams, as we already see the drivers picking their little battles across this 13.6 kilometer circuit.
It's all about what is it going to be during the course of the race and who has got the advantage over the rest of the field. No to tell though, but our leaders starting to make their way towards the start-finish line. Sean Straden will cross the line to complete his first lap. Virtia Buerta trying to break away from Martin Jacobs on the back of him. Third Bucas going and running just a little bit ahead. Gotta say, rather clean start. Expected a little bit more carnage from the drivers here, but it's been fair and fierce racing at the moment. Esteban Torres now having to deal with Carl Lake up on the inside. The McLaren driver goes a little bit elbow to elbow with Carl Lake in the Porsche, but just not able to get the run out. And Kyle now needs to really focus on the charge through this next little sector, trying to get the apexes just right, the exit's perfect, and ensure he carries enough speed heading down the Mozon straight. If you're 2 kilometers short, you're going to feel it, and you need to be well aware of your driving on the way through. If you could remove the wings off these cars, I think the drivers would do exactly that to try and minimize the amount of drag they have on these cars, as you want to have as much top speed as possible, as little drag as possible, and ensure that you can make your way to the end of this race fuel efficient and fast as ever. Two things you really don't have together.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Stephen, and you're absolutely right there. You have to carry a lot of speed through the corners of the trees and see Herbert Percival right behind this friend and teammate Carl Lake backing off Jody Sedman, but then Carl trying to mount an attack over the likes of Torres there. But I've found a bit of interesting information there, Stephen. So it's not the first and second chicane apparently. The first chicane is apparently Daytona chicane, and the second chicane is called Michelin chicane. So they changed that name. It's just force of habit, public always saying first and second chicane. But some good battles. I just look at that long line of cars as they get down the Mulsanne into, I'm still going to call it second chicane, with Carl Lake trying to close the gap onto Pretorius, and Herman Percival trying to keep the defensive line over the hunting Porsche of Jody Sedman.
Do you know they've also got second names there? It's not just what you said. They actually do have a second name. And every sim racer knows it as well. I'm surprised you didn't use it.
Do you tell?
First one's Oopsie, second one's Daisy. As you miss both.
And then missing your brake throttle entirely, because if you're tired at night, you don't know where you are on the circuit, and you just see your tire barrier in front of you. But as you take a look at this, Herman Percival right behind him, we've got Jody Sedman, the Porsche, having a phenomenal drive out of Mulsanne corner, now in a slipstream onto the run all the way to Indianapolis. Porsche having to jump over the curbs, placing the car, scraping the bottom of the car over the curbing as Herman goes around the outside. Bit of a tricky way to place the car, as the fast approaching first little kink into Indianapolis is quite tricky. If you don't hook it up right, you can be collected by the car beside you if they don't back out earlier, which you see Jody did, and essentially swing to the wall. But Herman, braver on the brakes on the outside, able to keep it there into Arnage braking, and now hoping again that this chicane, the long straight, isn't long enough for the Porsche to gain an advantage. And the funny thing, it might be called the Porsche curves, but the Porsche is not strong in that section. I can promise you that it is not strong in that little section.
Well, let's talk about two cars coming out. Johan van der Vente battling out against Kirsten Peters. Behind them, Johan van der Vente trying to make up a little bit of time. Grant Leclerc just off the tail of them as well. So these drivers giving it a little bit more of a fight. And yes, they are 21st and 22nd position, but they are still nose to tail, with Peters trying her luck to just look for the inside, look for the outside, seeing where exactly is Gerard a little less easy on the throttle, a little less on the brake, and try and find that little bit of a gap to launch his way through. So it's going to be an interesting fight. The question is, do you want to be the leading car? Now I ask this one from a strategy point of view. We know we got an hour and 20-minute race. You know that you're going to need to go through the pits at some point to do a refill on your car. If you're the leading car, you're putting a hole in the air for everyone behind you to use less throttle but carry the same speed, and they're able to go a little bit longer, especially on a circuit like this that has a very, 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 very long straight such as Mozon. Do you want to be that lead car? Or if you're running the similar lap times, rather assist each other. As you see, Alex and Peters backing out. Gero van der Venter runs out wide. Now Johan trying to go after them. He misses out his brake marker and immediately has Grant Leclerc. Oh! Contact!
Oh!
It looked like Johan was trying to move back online after feeling the front of Grant, trying to close him off a little bit there. And they just clipped each other. And Johan van der Venter into the pits. DNF. He's out. Johan van der Venter is out after the second lap of this race.
It is a bit of a rough one, Stephen. I mean, you go through that Dunlop chicane hoping to gain as much speed. You can cut the curbs there, but it also opens you up for a bit of an attack if the driver in front of behind you is a bit braver. But again, now we see Vieter Buerta having his teammate Paul Venter right behind him, trying to get as close as possible to the RTA driver up ahead. Now, Lamar. It's something that many drivers don't really know about, is having the car placed in the middle of the circuit. I've tried to explain it multiple times, but the man that explained it to me the best is sharing the mic with me. Stephen, what is the reason that drivers usually go into the middle of the circuit on the Mulsanne corners, or on Mulsanne straights, as well as the run from Mulsanne corner to Orange?
Keeps you away from a lot of the rubble, and also in sims, they inherently have the middle of the circuit doesn't bottom the car out as badly, so you actually get a little bit of speed depending on the car and the ride height. It only works well in sims. You don't really see too many real life drivers doing it, but it's also to avoid a lot of the marbles that sit on the outside of the circuit that will land up catching on your tires. We do see Herman in the background getting a bit unsettled, and we got another Porsche going and getting it all wrong. That's Kobe, who just went and lost it to Brandon Kruger, who's now trying to make his way up through it. Brandon Kruger all the way down in 13. Hold on, he was holding in the top 5.
Yes, I was actually about to bring that up. It's quite strange to see Brandon Kruger all the way at, well, not that high up anymore. It looks like is he trying to unlap himself, Stephen? No, he is not. He is fighting for position. So the question is, did he go gravel trap exploration? Sometimes we missed it. I did see we have a yellow flag earlier on, but I don't. It's not. It didn't pick up in our systems of which car it was. But we did see it's all the way quite back. So he's fighting his way back to the front pack, because we do know that he isn't a driver that's normally this far back in the back. So he's got his hands full trying to navigate this. But again, you can be fast. But on Lamar, if you've got a slipstream or you've got a train in front of you, you will be a sitting duck. And you mentioned earlier, do you want to be the first car or do you want to be behind? Now, yes, you do punch a hole if you're the leading car, and you do have to be on throttle a lot more. However, it does keep you out of danger should there be any carnage happening behind you. Should be a tap or a car spinning and the cars are falling close to another, it does protect you from getting any sort of damage. But it's also a bit of a risk. You will be burning more fuel, you'll be chowing your tires a lot more. So it's all about the pros and cons of the strategic, what you want to do, as we do see the likes of Harry Bierkes trying to catch up to Martin Jacobs.
Bierkes doing everything he can to try and make that ground up, but just not having the run out of the corners. Martin a little bit quicker and moving right to the wall, just hoping to break some of the toe, ensuring that there is no way to get around him. Esteban Torres and Carl Lake following suit with 8th and 9th position at the moment, but it is a bit further down. Chris Collison having a battle with Brandon Kruger on his tail. Jeremiah Valatham and Kobe Turan, who we saw a little bit earlier, landing up into the dirt, having a difficult time. The grid is starting to spread out a little bit more, and drivers now just getting into the rhythm. What do they need to do to move forward in this race? Start thinking about the strategies that you need to stay at the top. Brandon Holthazen, let's take this as a good one. Brandon did a brilliant qualifying time, mucked it up out of turn 2, which is the first left-hander, and he landed up outbraking himself, getting off the circuit, having the field cover through. He's down in 16th position, but he is looking to stay as consistent as possible, utilizing the slipstream as long as possible. Brandon Kruger going to go and fight his way through. And you can see, middle of the circuit, keeping it all together, moves a little bit to the right-hand side, knowing that he is keeping a little bit of a slip, trying to give some space, a little bit of room, and it's now on the brakes. But Brandon, unfortunately, being on the right-hand side doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have the best drive heading towards the apex, because you have to brake that little bit harder. It's all about carrying the momentum through, and unfortunately wasn't able to be that 1 kilometer faster. Now it's got to try and fight it back yet again. As Jeremiah holds station, he's now going to have the inside line heading into the left-hander, and who's going to be able to get the run here? Brandon Kruger inching his way forward, forward, forward. Can he keep it going? Yes, he does. And Jeremiah had to give him a little bit of room, looking for a cutback, however, just couldn't get the drive coming out of the corner. And now we'll just have to be patient and wait for his time again. Every corner is a chess move around this circuit. It's all about where is the opportunity and when are you going to take it. Are you going to strike now, or are you going to wait that little bit longer? Wait for the next set of corners where it becomes a little bit more difficult to get the drive? Or is it going to be attack now and see if you can move forward later?
Again, it comes down to strategy, Stephen. And as you mentioned there, the best advice around the circuit would be best advice would be pathology, a bit of brain fog there, is sit behind the car you are following for a few laps. Get the idea of where they are making mistakes and try to exploit it. Learn the pattern, learn where you can put pressure on them, and find out where the brake issues are. As we can see here, Carl Lake getting past the likes of Esteban Pretorius after having a phenomenal drive out of Bolson corner, and then he's slingshotting past Esteban Pretorius. Now, Esteban Pretorius is a driver that we are used to seeing drive a Lamborghini and fighting in the front, but he's switching McLaren, and it looks like McLaren is not sitting well with him, but he is now trying to get back over to the rookie Carl Lake. But Carl is slowly but surely having a bit of a top speed advantage, only gaining, or slowly but gaining a thousandth of a tenth as they go into the Porsche girls as they slam on the brakes there. But Carl Lake shifting his focus now all the way to Kleinhans and hoping to get a better position, as he was already finding his way to 7th position.
It's going to be an interesting one. Stanton Augustus dealing with Rob van der Heever, and Arno Kraus chasing him down. A little piece of me is a big fan of Chevs, however. When you go to a turbocharged V6, I would rather see the mighty... Oh, that is a problem! Oh. And that is Brandon Holthazen. That's Brandon Holthazen into the dirt. Holthazen, monster accident for him, into the dirt, and a fair amount of damage to the car. My heavens. Are we going to see a retirement?
Is he parking it, or is he using the escape road in order? Nope, he's parking it, saying too much damage on the car, unfortunately, saying that's enough. Putting it to the pits, well, getting towed to the pits to hope and get it finished, Steven. But it's a DNF. They closed the garage door, it looks like. That is the red marker of doom through that entry, saying done, goodbye. It's not a Peugeot that we saw last year, but it is a BMW. Unfortunately, race over there for the likes of Brandon Holthazen. But take a look at this. Kirby Tron and Jermaine Vlatham. Lambo versus Porsche. Kirby trying to fight and put a gap over Vlatham. Just not able. This battle has been going on over a course of two laps. So with the likes of Lamar being so long, it's quite difficult to really pull a gap over any car that is currently sitting behind you, as well as in your slip.
It's all about keeping the rhythm. We're not going to see much overtaking now, but towards the end, when everyone starts to feel the long circuit, feel that they can push that little bit harder, and well, I'm on my last lap, you know, got to give it that little bit more, and lands up pushing the mark a little too far. That's generally where it gets a little bit on the rough side. So far, it has been a very, very clean start for our drivers, as they have now settled themselves into position. Jan Blicknote holds the fastest lap time of the race with a 3:59.6. Ahead is Gerbucas and Vietia Buerta trying to close up the distance as well. 2 DNFs, unfortunately. Brandon Holthazen and Jan VDV will be going and sitting on the sideline, scratching their head, thinking, what on earth could have been done? Mono Cross and Neil Greeding fighting it out. It's Chevrolet versus Lamborghini. And coming into the next corner, it's going to be Lambo on the inside for the advantage, unless Onocross can get the sweep. Something he knows so well. He's done in the world of iRacing in LMU. Not as brave with the car. Neil Greeding was more than happy and more than comfortable to slow that Lambo down, make the corner, and get the drive all the way out to open the distance yet again over Onocross, who now has to just wait once again, biding his time and waiting for the chance to go launching his way up through the field at the moment. So Sean Stratham leads out the field with Martin Jacobs in second place. Kurt Bucas fighting out with the likes of Johan Bluknoot as they hold on for the top three, with Bucas currently leading out the top three. He's lying third with Bluknoot's hard chase in fourth place. Vietia Buerta, along with Paul Venter, Ron Kleinans, Carl Lake, Estienne Pretorius, Jody Cinnamon, along with Herman Percival, Chris Collison, Brandon Kruger, Kobe Theron, Jeremiah Valtham, Stanton Augustus, Rob van der Heever, Neil Greeding, Arno Gras, Chris St. Peters, along with Gerald VDV, Grant Leclerc, Devon Nell, Lucas Jabir, Mahayath Musa, way down the field in 25th, and is nowhere near anyone around him, with the likes of Jan Grimal a little bit further back as well. So they're still going, they're still fighting, but no one around them.
Yeah, some big names out of position. We can really say not where we are used to seeing them. So they've got their hands full trying to fight up to where they need to do, Steve. But I do believe that there are some cars that are currently carrying some damage out there, but they are showing some great phenomenal pace. I mean, we haven't spoken much about this driver just yet, but Sean Stratham, from start, he has gone and just set the pace, already pulling a 4.5 second gap over the RTA drivers behind him, as well as the likes of Stingers Racing Bierkes. So he has taken off, and the rest of the fighting has been happening behind him. He's pretty much on a Sunday cruise out there currently at this point.
Not too worried about it all, and that's the main thing you want to do. Go and open up the distance and fight your way through. The pit lane is a bit long here at Le Mans. That means you've got to have that little bit of breathing room. If it's 5 seconds, great. If you can make it 10, even better, especially when you're trying to get the fuel stops done and dusted. Bluknoot and Bucas, however, fighting their way together. The two of them now brawling it out, is allowing Vietia Buerta to slowly eat the distance between them and get a little bit closer to go on the attack. So I got a funny feeling here, and don't quote me on this, or you can. Vietia Buerta is going to be the third car, turning his duo into a trio fight very, very soon.
And that also will slow down this pack a bit, well, this trio, a group of three, a bit more, allowing his teammate Paul Venter to come into the fray of things also. So it's going to be two LNR cars versus a Stickers Racing versus an RTA. But we can't call it just yet, because anything can happen around the circuit. We all know that. It's got to be difficult, but a good run out of the Dunlop chicane, or whatever it's called now, first corner, and we see Johan Bluknoot closing right up onto Gerrit Bierkes in the slipstream, pulls out, hoping to get the inside line into the second chicane side by side. Now normally on the inside you're hoping the car on your outside is a bit more scared and backs out early, but we have seen it before. These drivers are quite brave on the brakes, as I say that Gerrit Bierkes starts better and says, I'll live to fight another day. Not what Vietia Buerta would have wanted, and hopes now to use the stream of Bluknoot to pull himself closer is Bierkes, but that also allows Buerta to close it a bit more.
When you start changing up your fight, start thinking about what you need to do and how long are you planning to go. Brandon Kruger, how's this, fighting out against Kobe Theron at the moment. Kobe getting a little bit unsettled on the exit, but Brandon Kruger up into 13th. Not long ago, we were seeing him down the position, down to 23rd. Now he's up into 13th, so he's up 10 and still a long, long way from the top. So drivers are really trying to figure out what they can do. And if we look at the gains and losses, Brandon Kruger at the moment down 8 places from where he started, and now trying to just do everything possible to keep moving forward. However, biggest gains that we're looking at, we've got Jody sitting on 4 on his arrival up, and Carl Lake sitting on 5 after a great start from both of them. See a lot more gains than losses here, but those that have lost, it's been pretty substantial.
Absolutely, Stephen, and this is going to be hard for those that lost quite a lot with this long circuit, as we do see mini battles up and down the entire field. Again, let's take a look at our front fight for third position currently, but Blignout already pulling a bit of a gap over the likes of Bierkes, but Botha are closing on more and more as they enter the Porsche curves and hoping to sneak past this Lambo. But we have seen before, Bierkes does not make it easy for cars to pass him. He makes that Lambo as wide as possible, makes it as big as the original founding vehicle of Lamborghini, which was a tractor, and is now producing supercars, but he does turn that Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2 into quite a large vehicle, making it difficult for any car behind him to follow closely.
You've never been around the likes of Vierti or Botha. He's got a trailer that can go and move entire 4x4s out the way, and I think he's already starting to plan how he can get that Lamborghini onto a trailer and out his way so he can go fighting after Blignout, because the more that these two fight, the more they lose in time. And I've got to say, it's going to be an interesting one for them to go. So Bierkes and Botha continue their fight. Carl Lake and Estienne Victorious as well, continuing their battles with one another, with Jody clued in on the battle, closes up the distance. Don't count Jody out of this fight. He has been in the Porsche for all the seasons thus far and has been really making some headway with the car. He's found some faults to it, but he's found a lot of positive, and he's one of the very few drivers that has stuck to their original car since season 1.
It does seem to be a track favoring the Porsches out tonight, but it also favors the BMWs, as the BMWs seem to be performing quite well. All the front engine cars doing well. Yes, I know the Porsche is a rear engine car, but it looks to be a dominating factor by all of our front engine cars. As we take a look here, Botha taking a look on the inside of Gerrit Bierkes, taking a bit of a sniff to see what's going on there. Starts better, backs out, tries to line it up for chicane, for the first chicane exit, and then in the slipstream, as he has double the slipstream now from the likes of Blignout as well as Gerrit Bierkes. But it's a bit of a train now, a bit of a snake, as a snake all over the circuit for in the run to the second chicane. So he's getting quite close, a lot closer, gap going down and down. Close to just 1/10 left, pulls out again, decides to rather back off and into a slot back in as he lives to fight another day.
This is the whole thing. You got to plan your fights, as we do see Vierti a little bit unsettled, trying to get past the likes of Bierkes. Couldn't quite get the pass done, but is checking the gearbox at the moment. He is checking if there's enough oil on that 6th gear at the moment, but it is now side by side in towards the bottom. This is where it's heartbreaking. This is all about momentum, and both drivers want it. Both drivers going for it. Both drivers elbow to elbow, and both drivers land up losing just enough to allow Blignout to get a little bit more room and Paul Ricard to close the distance.
Some great rubbing is racing there going into Mulsanne corner, but Steve, you mentioned it is a very heartbreaking zone, and Botha saying, I'm the bravest on the brakes, I've got the bigger car, I look like a giant compared to your low, fast Lamborghini sleek design car. I'm opening up my beaver teeth and I am sneaking past you right there. Now, if Botha really wants to play the team game, he can try and back off and bring Paul Ricard into the fight to really throw Gerrit Bierkes off of his game. But Gerrit Bierkes zigs and zags, goes for the inside line. Botha parks it on the apex at Ornage and really slows down that Lamborghini that's charging, the Raging Bull charging behind him, which allows, guess what? Teammate Paul Ricard to close right on up as they run into the Porsche curves, the long straight right before going to the Porsche curves. Paul Ricard placing the car in the middle, trying to get some of that slipstream, and then slots right back to get a better drive on that Lamborghini as they go into the sweeping section that is the Porsche curves.
Now I'm seeing this fight, and it's a boxing match, and everyone's hoping that they are not likes of Jake Paul at the moment. but it's Bucas getting a little bit unsteady coming out of the Porsche curves, aiming towards Chevrolet now, and it's all about carrying the momentum. All that Lamborghini starting to bite underneath him. Paul Fenter goes around the long way and is able to get that pass done and dusted. Bucas was able just to hold on that little bit longer, but only just, as Paul Fenter cruised around, made it easy, and now starting to open up a bit of a distance. Carl Lake is in the same sort of problem with Esteban Pretorius. He can't push too hard. The Porsche, you can see, skating around him. He's having to really think about when can he get on the power, and that is when life gets extremely difficult for our drivers.
Absolutely, Stephen. It's all about now, how long have you looked after your tires? Are they in good shape to make it to your scheduled pit stop? But it also has to be a mind game. But I do have a little piece of information here, Stephen. The car of Kyle Lake is currently carrying some bit of front bodywork damage, meaning that he has gotten into a bit of a knock on that front bumper. So it's got a bit slow on his top speed, meaning the car might behave a bit different in how he was used to in practice. So he will probably go into the pits on his scheduled pit stop and hopefully get a new front bumper clipped on, otherwise not.
Well, as the drivers are finding it out, we've got a couple of people from the virtual grandstand, some that, well, they've really gone the virtual grandstand route, even from a hospital bed. And that's a shout out to Nicole, being one of our new viewers coming in and from a hospital bed, watching some of the exciting racing here. I think she's going to be also filming some GT3s later this week. But Esteban Pretorius and Jody going and fighting it out, along with Neil Greening and Arno Kraus also following suit in the same fight. So Arno Kraus keeping right on the back of Neil Greening, and Rob van der Heever as well, just ahead by a hair at the moment.
Just close there, but Neil Greening having a good battle last week. Now, unfortunately, again, still finding it out with the cars running with Rob Heever as well as Arno Kraus behind him. But that Corvette just does not seem to have that power underneath it, Stephen. It seems to be struggling a bit, not really able to get the pace up the front. As you see, Neil Greening pulls out of the slipstream of Rob Heever alongside, makes the move into the first chicane. Beautiful little move there as he sets his sight on the next car in front of him, which is, I'm trying to look on our timing tower here, not able to see it, Stanton Augustus, as he is now setting his sight to get as close as possible to his fellow manufacturer driver, but not the same team. They do have the same color scheme, but different team. Stanton Augustus is Stingus Racing, while Neil Greening is racing for himself.
Maybe a future Stinger Racing driver. This is just the bit of a teaser from it. I mean, similar livery, just saying, it's something we've seen in the past. But it's going to see a four-car train building up for 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th position. Arno Kraus at the back of the train will have to keep a very, very close eye on the rest of the drivers. I mean, this is going to be a great run for every single one of them. Arno Kraus, however, has got the drive on Rob van der Heever. He looks for the inside line. He's got to be a little bit brave on the brakes. Unfortunately, not going to aim for it here, but rather wait it out that little bit more. He knows the BMW is rock solid through Indianapolis, and the Chev gets a little bit on the wily side. Neil Greening is fighting out with Stanton Augustus. The two of them are really pushing one another to the fringes of the circuit to see what is going to happen.
Yeah, it's absolutely pushing each other's cars to the absolute limit, with the Lamborghinis setting chase after one another. Maybe you are right, Neil, trying to get a spot there on Stingers Racing. You never know. We have seen drivers rock similar colored liveries as terms of a proving ground to get just testing to see how they are there. As I see a bit of just some hoodwinking, or just, no, well, I don't know what the word is, just a bit of shenanigans here from a co-commentator as he pulls me a bit of a sly smile here. But Stanton Augustus hooking up the Lamborghini quite well in the Porsche, going into Corvette corner here, and then a straight shot into Ford chicane, which then switches over to, funny enough, the Motor chicane. Motor chicane is the oil manufacturer that sponsors most of the cars in for most of the cars at the Real World Le Mans, having a corner named after them in 2024, I believe. But on across, getting a better run out of the stage chicane as it gets close to the BMW, hoping to get a much better drive as it brings the mighty American muscle coming close to the German engineering.
It's a V6. It's turbocharged. They got rid of the American muscle and they replaced it with a kazoo at that point. I'm bitter about that, but hey,
like a kazoo.
It's Jody getting ahead of Pretorius along with Kyle, Lake, and Herman. This is another little battle starting to form of 4 cars. The 2 teammates, Kyle, Lake, and Herman Percival, going to be backing each other up a bit here, as we do see Pretorius following along with the likes of Jody, trying to see where he can go. Herman hoping to give a little bit of a bump draft on the way through, but seeing how these two are going to gun it for the corner, Pretorius gets a run. A big look on the inside for Kyle Lake, who tried to get past Jody, runs out a little bit wide and slows up a little too much. And that has now brought Herman back into the fray, keeping close to one another, and it's absolutely key. And this is where you're going to start pulling a little bit of a Daytona move. Start trying to give them a little push down the straight. Try and move the queue a little bit further up and get away from everyone at the back. Herman fighting left and right. He is swapping ends with Kyle Lake at the moment. And it does look like Jody's doing exactly the same with Esteban Pretorius. The two of them not having an easy run. And both sets of drivers are having a very, very difficult race. Now, Cam, we got to talk about this because there's quite a variety of drivers from across the country, across the world that race with us. But if you want to enter, where can they go? Where can they look to enter into races like this, what we're seeing at Le Mans with some of the best drivers in South Africa that are fighting it out?
There's only one place where they can head over to, and that is our RaceFace.Pro Discord. Now, the link to that can be found in the description underneath the live stream below. And in that, well, other than that, you can find all the information that's needed, which will also link us to your SimGrid, as well as any other information you need.
There we go. And also, just a variety of gear that's out on the circuit here. From drivers using G29s all the way from Logitech to some of the more fancy stuff, Fanatec's, and you might even find 1 or 2 running in Instatec, which is actually built locally here in South Africa during COVID times, no longer manufactured, but you do get a variety. I do know of a couple of drivers that are using PSXNs, a 6 and a 9. The numbers is purely on how many Newton meters peak torque they're able to give out. So 6 Newton meter, really good, brings you on the same level as what a Mazda does. Mazda having a lot more refinement over the PXN, but hey, hopefully we're able to go and educate a little bit more. But it isn't about the gear, it's about driving. Bum in the seat and lap after lap after lap. It doesn't matter how much you go, how fancy you go. If you're not getting that seat time, you're not getting that podium.
No, absolutely, Stephen, and it is not the gear that makes the driver, it's the driver that makes the gear. I think that makes sense. By the way, it does mean it's no matter what you have, it's always all about the skill and time you put into the simulator of your choosing in order to go faster. We have seen it before with drivers on a G29 go and win championships by just being consistent and getting comfortable with the car.
It's all about the momentum. It's all about keeping it together. Jody, Kyle, and Pretorius running nose to tail. Herman a little bit further back is keeping a close eye, but Chris Colson, Brandon Kruger also starting to close the distance between them as well, as this is our closest fight that's actually happening, other than Rob van der Heever, who's just pulled into the pits today, releasing Arno Kraus to carry on. So we are seeing some pit stops coming in here as well, and a few drivers thinking about what can they do to stay out towards the front. Question is, Cam, 42 minutes, you got an hour and 20-minute race. Do you want to really start pitting during this time, or do you think a later pit stop is in better question? I mean, let's take Sean Stratham. He was looking at a 5-second. He's now lost time and had Martin Jacobs closing up the distance. Martin actually setting the fastest lap time of the race with a 3:59.252, with Sean Stratham with a 3:59.366 at the end of his lap.
Well, Steve, it's all about different strategies out there. If you want to, I do believe I'm going to fumble over my words here, but I do believe some drivers are going to go and box shortly due to the fact that it has hit the midway mark, as you see Kyle Lake getting a bit of a squirrely there at the exit of the first chicane. So, yes, now he's allowed his teammate to get right behind him in the McLaren of Herman Percival, which makes it difficult there. But we will see some drivers go and stop now or follow suit of the drivers that are racing in the front. I believe though Sean Stradom in our front battle, or the front pack battle, has gotten the most advantage.
Rob van der Heever getting a penalty and will need to serve it. So our in-game stewards, the ones that look through a magnifying glass at you, well, they set their sights on this BMW and said, you got a penalty, buddy. You're going to need to serve that. And he is just caught up to Lucas Jabeur up the road from him. Lucas keeping it all together in the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo is now not under too much pressure to have that fight. Gerard van der Venter getting lots of room from Peters, is able to just keep the momentum going and cycling his way through after watching his brother land up in the wall. He is now just trying to see it through to the end.
Now, Steve, just a bit of a side note there. I got a little piece. I just glanced out of our pit commentary box. Well, pit commentary box window here. I can already see the crew of Kyle Lake's team, the pit crew, getting ready and jumping out into the pit lane. Might be a bit early there, guys, but they are getting ready with Kyle Lake getting ready to come in and serve his pit stop to get the car sorted and across the line. I'll keep an eye on what they're doing there, but Kyle Lake getting ready to try and undercut his closest rivals in terms of Jody Sediman as well as Pretorius, which is in the RTA McLaren that you see right there up the road.
And not too far behind them, Chris Collison, Brandon Kruger fighting it out between one another. Both drivers not looking to give an inch here. Chris Collison will be wanting to try and get his elbows out and a solid defense to try and fight it out for the top and also protect his teammate. Brandon Kruger getting very out of shape under braking, looking like that front left started bottoming out a little bit before heading into the Porsche chicane. So maybe setup work on the car has been great, might have scored a bit of damage, and now you can see the little cracks in the armor when these drivers are working with a knife's edge on their setup. An absolute has to be perfect, but with no give, just in case of contact, you will start to spot few problems coming in. So Kyle Lake's into the pits, Jody's into the pits, and a variety all diving into the pits. Brandon Kruger doing exactly that. Try to even look for an overtake. Can't do that, otherwise you're going to land up getting yourself a penalty. Paul Fenter into the pits, Bucas into the pits, which means Pretorius up into fourth, Blichnote into third, Martin into second, and Sean Stradom, he's just lost by himself somewhere else on the circuit. He's that far up the road, we're going to have to send a search party for him.
It is quite a whole group of cars into the pits there, all the way from 6th down to 15th. All the drivers who are winning little battles jumping into the pits here. But it's going to be interesting, Stephen. We saw it, I don't believe you saw it previously, but many of the other simulators allows for ghosting in the pits, meaning you can drive through the cars in front of you, especially if they are standing still. LMU does not allow that. LMU makes them like a brick solid wall, like a real car. If you go to the pits, your pit box is currently being shortened, or you run up to your pit box is being shortened by another car pitting next to you. You will have to take longer routes in order to get to your box. But we see Veta Buerta getting out of the pits and maintaining position over Gerrit Beekers. A good stop from the LNR crew as the Stingers Racing team is trying to play catch up in the pits, but unfortunately not able to do it. But I do see we have had some contacts in the pit lane as drivers are scrambling to get out of the pit box in an attempt to gain some time over the cars in front of them.
A couple of drivers starting to feel I did see a cone getting dragged by Chris Collison not too far along. It looks like a couple of drivers going and wiping out Kenny the cone not once, not twice, and leaving him all on the circuit as well. So a couple of drivers just pushing a little too hard on the exit and starting to feel the effects. Cold tires and now a full belly of fuel means that these cars are a little bit different to what you previously were on. Drivers having to really think out of the box here. Vietia Buerta, if we go back to round 2, had one of the worst pit stops. That was a multiple pit stop followed by penalties, then wasn't fueled, had to come back into the pits, then another penalty as he left, so he served that, but then there wasn't enough fuel in the car left, so he went back into the pits and eventually gave up. It was literally a comedy of errors that threw him out of the race. This time round, looks like the team have got their act together and made sure he's out with not a problem, and that he stayed on that pit limiter until the very end, heading into the second corner.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a look at this little jump. Jody Sedman was quite close heading into the pit stop, so he gets a sequence. Take a look at the gap that he has pulled over the likes of Kyle Lake and Herman Percival. Herman Percival having to be very busy defending against the ever faster flying Brandon Kruger, who's fighting his way up after having having a bit of an incident early on in the race. But now it is mid-engine versus mid-engine, Lamborghini versus McLaren, British versus the Italians. Who is going to be the best there? Herman Percival trying to make that McLaren a bit difficult. I spoke with him again earlier this week, and he mentioned that the McLaren is a different beast to tame when it comes to the curbs. That is all because of its long body. It's very low to the ground, meaning your undercarriage can get very quickly damaged if it scrapes over the curb, especially the raised curbs, which can be found at Motul Chicane as well as our Ford Chicane. It's also the corner where every engineer, if they take a look, let's take a look at bump drafting here, which isn't normally allowed, but it is also the corner where the engineers normally frown upon the drivers because it's just damage they have to fix on a car every single time it comes to the garage.
Last time Herman and Brandon Kruger were on the track together, it landed up with a T-bone in a set of Corsa Competizione. So seeing them both going and pushing each other that little bit harder, bit of flashbacks to the past. But Brandon Kruger, sporting a fair amount of damage to the front end of his car, has now got to keep that well enough in mind. Has it killed some of the drive as it's picked up a bit of damage to the nose, and is it going to affect him to catch up to Kyle Lake, trying that little bit harder, trying to claw back every little bit of time he can. Chris Collison also making up some good headway to the likes of Herman, will be the next one to go through. You can see he took a little bit of a shallower line, unfortunately wasn't close enough to see how it's going to move forward. Drivers are really thinking of what they can do here in the RaceFace.Pro LMU GT3 Championship. And I also do want to point out that we are proudly sponsored by EG Evolved, and you can go and get some of the best deals from EG Evolved. If I do remember correctly, as we do see Devon Nell is a retirement as well, so 24 cars are going. Devon Nell was just retired, and that is him out of the race. But if you go and have a chat to Andres from the likes of, well, if you want to go and purchase something, do mention that you've come from RaceFace.Pro, and they do work out a special deal to help you out that extra little way. So if you are thinking about getting into stuff in the world of sim racing or flight, definitely go and take a look. I'm waiting for the one day they start bringing boating into the world of sim racing. The reason why, we've got rainstorms, as we saw at Paul Ricard, where you feel like you're a boat on the water, so they need to start bringing that in.
Well, Steve, we will never know. There might be a simulator out there that has boat racing. I mean,
there is.
Sport.
We just need to use it.
It's just needs to develop the controls for that. But take a look at this. Kyle Lake closing right up onto Jody Sedman. So that means Jody Sedman might have had a bit of a whoopsie daisy. And no, it's not through the first chicane or second chicane on Mulsanne Straight. It's somewhere else on the circuit, and he has had a phenomenal run and closed right onto the rear of Jody Sedman as they zig and zag across the circuit. Jody, do be careful, because you might get a wrap on the knuckles as Kyle Lake is trying to squeeze Jody onto a bit inside line. Jody Sedman not able to have the run. Kyle Lake sneaking it past around the outside, takes the position from Jody Sedman, slots up into ninth position. Brilliant move and brilliant racing from these two Porsche drivers.
Yeah, I do want to point out a big problem though. There's Brandon Kruger, 14th.
Where's Herman Percival?
Herman's 11th.
Oh, what happened there? That's something that slipped from our camera range. Something we don't know. Might have been a... what if that damage... That might have damaged? Might not have damaged. Let's take a look in the front shot. Jody Sedman going again, trying to get past Kyle Lake. Kyle Lake says, I'm keeping my line. I got the better speed. Thank you very much. Here I go again. But again...
And unsteady.
But Steve, it's strange though, because right behind, oh no, it's Chris Collison behind Hone Percival. Stinger Racing and RTA liveries from a distance look very similar. It's difficult to maintain, but again, Hone Percival, another Lamborghini right behind him, needs to defend against that as he tries to keep a bit of space between himself and his teammate, but he also wants to move up more for his championship hopes. However, just take a look, Porsche on Porsche. It's beautiful, but yeah, it's beautiful.
An interesting fight indeed. We did see Brandon Kruger a little bit earlier having the rear snapping out underneath him as well. So I wonder if maybe that damage is starting to eat into a bit of grip that he needs getting in and out of the corners. Well, Viertia Buerta and Blicknote fighting it out. Two drivers that have followed one another. Whether you're at Monday Night Racing, whether you're here at RaceFace.Pro, whether you're at Logistical Nightmare Racing or beyond, these two drivers have fought it out numerous times for numerous amounts of years, and now they're squaring up yet again on the circuit in two of the same cars, different setups, different liveries, but two drivers that are very, very formidable.
Two drivers who have shared track. Carl Lake has spun. Oh, unfortunately, Jody Sederman and Carl Lake getting tangled and turned around. That is something that's going to have to be said in the stewarding if it gets reported there, if it's noted, but not the Ray. The race should have gone for our rookie, but unfortunately, Molson Corner claiming another victim. As we take a look at Jody Sederman now having his mirrors full with Kirby Chorn, a driver we haven't spoken about much today.
Also new to the league as well, and is really showing what he can do. Kirby now looking to carry the momentum through. Jody's going to try and fight him out here and see where he can go. The question is, how long can he do it? Because there has to be a bit of damage onto that Porsche of Jody's car. And as he cuts the nose up over to Rodden at the moment, trying to hold him back, the question comes in. There's got to be a little bit of damage to the car. You're very, very unsettled. Both drivers getting on the power too early out of the corner. And with 30 minutes remaining, any error now throws you way down the field and out of luck. This is all about keeping the momentum. You change your entire race focus from passing a driver to just keep it together, let them make the mistakes, and you keep going. Jody was putting pressure on Carl. Carl did the same. The two of them, unfortunately, met in between a rock and a hard place at that point. But like so, Tehran is very, very forgiving through the corners. You can see he brakes a lot harder to allow Jody that little bit more room to play and a little bit more room to defend. So it also comes down to how aggressive the drivers are on the attack and defense. But you've got to be mindful, Brandon Kruger is making up some time behind them, and he will want to try and clear past as soon as he can. Back up towards the front though, Viertia Buerta and Jan Blicknote fighting it out, running nose to tail. Blicknote holds that middle line, giving himself a bit of an option, a little lean to the right-hand side to try and guard the line, but it is going to be Blicknote taking the hard route. He goes nose to tail on the two of them. Both drivers wanting the same piece of tarmac. A quick flash of lights from Blicknote, who immediately closes up the distance right on the back of Viertia Buerta. He's now going to look to go around the outside, but he is going to make dead sure to take that side slipstream off the side of Viertia Buerta. See if it's going to work in his favor. It's going to be a tough one to make it into the Moseln corner. Getting out of shape, tries to go for the undercut. Viertia outbraked himself, threw himself into the dirt, and that is where the quick thank you coming from Blicknote to Viertia Buerta. That little bit of room has given him a bit more of a run. Now the question is Viertia going to close up that distance, and is he going to take that lying down, having a little bit of a taunt while in front?
Well, that depends, Stephen, on how he can work getting his teammate into the fray of things to take some pressure off of his rear wing. So Paul Fenton needs to play the ultimate team game, not as ultimate as Checo in 2021, but still a team game to get Viertia to stop looking at his mirrors and focus forward, as he needs to just get back past the likes of Blicknote. But the two cars in front, Stradom and Jacobs. I believe Stradom might have pitted, or we might have missed that net. We might have missed that a little bit, because that gap has gone down significantly. So either the likes of RTA at the Martin Jacobs team...
All pitted. They have all pitted. Every car has pitted.
So Jacobs, well, the RTA side of Jacobs, Martin Jacobs' team was able to pull a phenomenal stop to get him closer into striking distance of Sean Stradom, and Sean might have had a bit of a fumble within the pits, or his tires are just not firing up as it should have.
That's always a long and hard fight now needed. Lucas, keep an eye on Buerta, right a little bit further down, 11th and 12th. It's Kobe and Jody fighting it out. Now the question is Kobe got the legs to keep ahead of Jody? He runs out very wide, heading into the Porsche chicane. He's able to slow the pace down and really keep Jody at bay, having to gear down an extra amount. So instead of him holding in 5th, down to 4th gear, trying to get his way through. And that's allowed Brandon Kruger to close the distance up as well, as he could remain in 5th, pull his way through the Porsche curves and keep gaining that little bit of time. So for the likes of Kobe, very smart move. Bring the pace down, hold the line, and let the entire field work their way through. You, on the other hand, can dictate the pace. It's not easy to pass there in the Porsche chicane, but it's very easy to cost people half a second getting out of the Porsche chicane just by gearing down.
Absolutely, Steve. And I've seen many races ended in the Porsche curves, Porsche chicane, due to people just messing up. And as you say that, John messing up the Dunlop chicane, heading into underneath the Dunlop bridge now, as that has allowed the likes of Brandon Kruger to sneak past Jody Sederman as he continues his fight back up the field and trying to get that. But Carl Lake also hoping that these three get a bit of contact more, allowing him to close the gap. They've seen in the background after having a bit of a spin with Jody Sederman into Mulsanne corner. Just a bit of rubbing there, unfortunately turned into contact, ruining that fantastic battle we saw throughout the entire race.
Well, Brandon Kruger, you could see, is definitely fighting with the car, not too happy with it. Jody's now going to follow suit as well, keeping right into the toe. He tried snatching that slipstream as early as possible to see if they're going to make up a bit of ground. But Brandon Kruger definitely not happy under braking, and Jody lunges down the inside, gets it stopped on the apex, and Brandon Kruger, no answer, was not able to go and get the car ahead. That Lamborghini is struggling. There is definitely a problem on that Lamborghini, that he can't carry the momentum needed to keep ahead of Jody, who is more than happy to rocket send it down the inside and make it go. I've got to say, phenomenal fighting on them, but these drivers all the way through that have been in battles are definitely showing that they are ready to cut their teeth here at Le Mans and are making dead sure for the championship it's all or nothing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Stephen. It's quite close racing for both of these drivers, slipstreaming, helping one another and that, but it is quite strange to see Brandon Kruger fighting this far back after a phenomenal qualifying. So definitely carrying some damage there, either on the front splitter or some suspension, as Jody Sederman goes around the outside, tries to go for a move. Nope, not going to make it. Just doesn't have enough pace. Brandon Kruger able to hold it, but look at that rear stepping out on the power, going through Mulsanne corner. That Lamborghini is not happy.
No, not at all, and Brandon Kruger dealing with it all. Jody was also a bit sketchy coming out of the corner, stood on the power, but now both of them rubbing elbow to elbow, leaning on each other more and more and more until, oh, both in the wall. Jody broken, and that is Brandon Kruger, front right, absolutely decimated. Jody trying to slow the car down, brings it to a halt, but that is Brandon Kruger dragging the front nose. The right-hand side is broken. Both drivers were pushing a little too hard. Both drivers wanting the same piece of ground. However, both drivers now out of the race and will be not seeing the checkered flag. That is red mist coming down on both drivers, and unfortunately, we got to see you shoved me, I shoved you, and unfortunately, racing's a cruel mistress, both of them landing up on the cutting floor. So not exactly how you want to see things go, and I do suspect both drivers are going to be getting a spoon on the hands, thud, thud, Don't do that ever again. Oh, bit of a tough one there, and a bitter pill to swallow for likes of Brandon Kruger, who was making that ground up. Jody, who was on a good drive, unfortunately let, how can I say, the red mist just envelop them and take them out of the race.
Unfortunately, Stephen, it is that we, as commentators, can only speculate, but it's all down to the stewards there. But I do see you tapping on my shoulder. What do you have? What little sneaky gossip? Oh!
Brandon Kruger trying to get the car around the circuit with one wheel missing. Had Peters going off the line and also landing up, getting a track violation as well. So trying to avoid the car and, well, not having an easy time here. Brandon Kruger's going to have to bring that car into the pits. I don't think there's much left in terms of suspension of the car. And he's got to try and get it into the right hand, you know, turning right.
Front.
But, oh, this
Front
is going
right's
to be...
completely gone, Steve. That's a Lamborghini that is scraping the front right corner. Bit of questionable. Yes, I understand trying to get the car back. However, yes, you have to lead it, but it's a bit of a danger on track. We'll have to see what the stewards says about that later on. But let's take a look again. Herman Purcell in 9th position. Phenomenal drive from a absolutely gutting race last weekend, even though he did finish, yes, 6 laps down, which I'm taking my hat off for saying, yes, I couldn't get to the start lines, but guess what, I still finished that race. He only ended 4 laps down, which I am quite proud of. 4 laps, 6 laps, can't share, but quite proud of this man for still going and finishing that race, as he has his mouthful of Distinguished Racing number 22 of Chris Collison, who is trying to sneak past and get into 9th position, snatching that from Herman Purcell.
Look, I've got to say it bugs me a little bit to see driving like that on both sides. So shout out to both drivers. You know who you are. Take a breather. Take 10. Go drink some water. Relook at the events that happened, and take a breather. Both drivers. There is fault. There's fault, but there's fault on both. On there, I admit there's a start and there's an end, but there's no reason to push each other into the wall. Sorry, absolutely no reason.
But one driver that will be happy though, Stephen, is Carl Lake. After having a bit of a contact with Jody Smith, he has gained 2 positions and is now sitting pretty in 12th, even though he's hoping to get back positions to get into 10th to continue his trend of top 10 finishes. But he has got his work cut out for him, as he is again facing the rear end of a Porsche of Kirby Tron. But take a look at this. These two still fighting it, going down into Indianapolis. Oh, is it Indianapolis? Yep, Indianapolis on the brakes. Chuck it right, chuck it left. Into what we know as Fuddy Duddy, and hard on the power, avoid the key lid on the outside, which will damage the tires and kick up some dust, and onto the brakes for, again, Arnage. The second slowest corner on this entire circuit, Stephen. Only 2 corners is where the drivers slow down for first gear, and that is Mulsanne and Arnage.
Now you tell me. Have to be in first gear. Now you tell me. Well, 19 minutes left of this race, an hour and 20-minute race for round 4. And I've got to say that the drivers are really trying to... Sorry, round 3. Getting confused here. But the drivers are really doing a good job keeping consistent in time. Sean Stradham has been keeping within 3-minute 59 to... 3-minute 59 mid to high. Martin Jakob, same, and he holds the fastest lap time of the race with 3:59.252, with Sean Stradham's fastest lap time of 3:59.258. We do see that coming in. Jan Blicknote holding on to 3rd. Would get report from his teammate out of the race. Vieter Buerta trying to keep on going. He lost his teammate early on in the race. Like with Bucas, though, is still got his teammate in the race, feeding some information. Paul Fenter, he's just out there enjoying his time and hoping his kid doesn't go and climb on the radio at the moment, with likes of Ruan Kleinans going to be moving away. So, I mean, this is all great racing from quite a variety of drivers out here, and we still see everyone trying to push that little bit harder despite the sun starting to come down and the track starting to cool down. The drivers are still keeping up the pace and keeping themselves going. Brandon Kruger, we have got reports that he is fixed and he's heading out, so Brandon Kruger will be seeing the end of the race. And unfortunately for Jody, he is out of the race. So Jody is out of the race. Brandon Kruger still in it, and he's going to fight his way through. I know that Carl Oosthuizen is watching from the sidelines and will be cheering him on as he pops out, or coming around with one of our Stingers, launching his way through.
Oh, hats off to Brandon Kruger for still trying to complete the race. Really well done. Congrats to that. Always good to see as many cars as possible finish the race, and that makes us as commentators our job easier. Multiple cars to commentate on, a lot of nonsense talk regarding the cars out on track. But back to this fight. Herman Percival able to pull a bit of a 1 second gap over Chris Collison, and just getting the McLaren to perform a bit better as the temperature is starting to drop as we head into the dusk. I'm not properly trained in English, I'm more of an Afrikaanse boy. But into the dusk time, I believe, or is that the dawn? No, dawn is the morning, dusk is the evening. But the cars really coming to life with their headlights, beginning to make some way there as the sun is shining here on the run to Indianapolis. But really, really beautiful to see these cars running there. It's one of the more gorgeous sights there is in motorsport, really, according to me. But as you take a look here, Bjorn Blichberg putting a bit of a gap over Vettel Buerta off. It's a phenomenal fight between the two of them, almost a 2 second gap between the two of them, and Vettel Buerta hoping to find his way back onto the podium, but not possible with that big gap between third and second, 20 seconds. Can you believe that? But straight up finding his stride again and pulling a 4 second gap over Martin Jacobs.
At the moment, with 2 seconds, Vettel Buerta is going to really have to find just a little bit of room, and you can see he's dropping the wheel off the circuit every so often, losing a bit of time as well. And that is going to be costing him quite a bit. He's got to be careful about that. Every time you dip a wheel through the sand, you're losing 0.1. You are losing that little bit of traction. Where Blichnote is keeping within the fringes of the circuit, he is making dead sure, keep those lap times going. You've got the space to breathe with a lack of pressure. Same as Herman and Chris Collison, doing exactly the same. Not running all the way over the curbs. They are keeping themselves within the limits, and also giving themselves just enough room that if something had to go awry, they will not be feeling the pain. And that is what you need to do to ensure you keep moving forward. That is the way you need to go and stand at the top. I mean, this is going to be a real interesting run. And between them, well, gotta say, it's an exciting time. But here in France, the RaceFace.Pro drivers in the LMU GT3 Championship, proudly brought to you by EG Volt, is putting on a great show. 14 minutes to go, and it sounds like a lot of time, but when you work it down into laps, it isn't really much you got left in the tank here.
No, absolutely not, Stephen. Around a circuit like Le Mans, which is a lap time in the GT3, is about 4 minutes. We can work around the 4-minute average, maybe a 3:58, 3:59. It only comes down to about three and a half laps remaining for these drivers, as we realized last week that the drivers don't do an extra lap after the timer runs out. If they don't cross the line before the timer hits 0, that lap turns into the final lap. So it's about 3.5, maybe 4 laps remaining, depending on what pace the leader wants to say. It's about 4-ish laps. Taking a look here to our producer, giving me the side eye saying, hey, go do better maths.
It's always interesting to see our drivers pushing a little bit harder for Blichnote. It is all about keeping the momentum. Remember, the championship is well enough alive. For Martin Jacobs at the moment, this is stellar for him. He's in second place. He's ahead of Blichnote. This will give him enough points to stay in the front of the championship. He's able to get that little bit more breathing room. He's able to keep moving forward in the championship and wanting to see it through to the end. For the likes of Blichnote, he's got to close that distance down, along with Vettel Buerta. Both of them going and clawing their way to fight for the championship and wanting to be a part of it. Sean Stratham, don't take him out of the question here. He's also in for the fight for the championship, as every little bit counts. Whether it's a point, whether it's all the points, every time you come across the line and see the checkered flag is that one step closer to being at the top of the run. I mean, Martin Jacobs, who currently leads out the championship. Gerrit Bukes, who currently holds second in the championship. Johan Bluchnout is third in the championship. Brandon Kruger is down at the bottom of the field, so he's not going to be scoring lots, but that's going to help. Esteban Pretorius, Chris Collison, Carl Oosthuizen's not on the grid. Sean Stradham is get the jump up through there. Matthias Musser's in 9th. Paul Fenter's ahead of him.
Yeah, it's welcome to Le Mans. It throws the championship upside down. You don't know what's going to happen. It's the beauty of this amazing circuit, Stephen.
It's all about keeping it going. The question is, how many people are going to be keeping going? Because I'm gonna throw a bit of a spanner in the works here, Cameron. Because if we go back to Paul Ricard, I actually remember seeing a couple of cars having to pit a second time right before the end, because the virtual energy became a problem, or their actual fuel became a problem. And that's where the question comes in. The pit lane between drivers is a little bit far here at Le Mans.
It's a very long run. I will say that. The pit lane is long, it's agonizing. If you are not working your fuel out as you're driving and knowing when to save, you will be in trouble. So who knows, we might see another pit stop strategy coming in. I hope not. I hope the drivers that boxed early are able to see to the very end. But it's all about strategy that drivers are running. It's all about different stuff. As you see this fight, it was 1.5 at one point. It's now 0.2. It's getting closer. It's getting edge of seat entertainment. Who is going to be the bravest? We will see as they head into the Porsche curves braking. Chris Collison lifting early there, Stephen, as that gap shot up right again. Not comfortable following the McLaren through the twisty bendy Porsche curves.
And not happy to get into the bit of a dirty air that will upset the car and cause a massive amount of loss of grip, which tells me he's got a lot of focus on that aero work as well, and not wanting to lose too much of it as he gets caught up in the dirty air. So not too happy with the mechanical grip, and is focusing a lot on aero, having that little bit of a lift, that little bit of a moment coming into play. And that's just given enough for Percy to open up the distance that little bit more. Gotta say, drivers are keeping up going, and Brandon Kruger up into 21st position ahead of Jermaine Matthias Musser, who unfortunately retired along with Devon Nell earlier in this race. Jermaine, who rounds out the back of our field at the moment, with Brandon Kruger chasing on down. At the moment, some good racing out there. Brandon Kruger not completely out of the fight, but from 25 cars starting, we have lost quite a few. Jody Cinnamon, unfortunately, out. Brandon Holzhazen early on, and Johan VDV, who was part of the earlier contact with the likes of Jody up towards the top. So, bit of a catch-up there.
I've got a bit of news, Steve, from Johan VDV's team. Unfortunately, damage sustained on the car was so severe that unfortunately they don't expect to be returning for rounds 4 and 5 at this point in time, having to go and fix the car, spend some time in the garage getting it fixed. So unfortunately that will be championship over for Johan VDV, and might be seeing him in the final round, round 6, not entirely sure, but that is round over for that car.
Yeah, maybe seeing him out and out, but that means it's going to be all the pressure for Gerard VDV to keep moving forward. So Gerard van der Venter will be the next driver out there. Unfortunately, not having his brother out on circuit in the championship. Bit of a blow there. Usually fun to see the family out and working together. However, let's talk about a bit of a situation happening here. Paul Venter, last season, raced a Lexus. Now Ruan Kleinans, his former rival in the Lexus, coming back at him at a rate of knots with 8 minutes left on this race. Both drivers are sitting between 4 minutes and 1 second in their lap times. They're holding on to 6th and 7th at the moment. Both drivers are looking to get the upper hand in their respective in their championship in the respective places. For Kleinans, it's now or never, knowing that Paul Venter has got a DNF as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. It's like the ghost of cars past is haunting Paul Fent with that Lexus in his rearview mirror, saying, listen, you did not treat me well previous seasons. I'm coming back to haunt you within the hands of another driver. But Paul Fent are not going to make it easy. We did see the likes of Rowan Kleinans weaving a bit there. I wonder if his, I'm assuming his tires might be a bit cold, but he did not come out of the pits now recently. So I'm curious. I wonder if the tire temps are not holding within the Lexus and is struggling to get some performance out of the car now. As you see the McLaren of Pretorius in the background running a bit wide in Indianapolis, kicking up a cloud of dust coming across the track there. But in the slipstream, Rowan Kleinans hoping to make a move as I'm taking a look over my shoulder to you, Stephen, and you are with your thinking cap on. What's going through that mechanical brain of yours?
Rowan Kleinans is braking earlier. He's not going for an attack.
But why is he weaving?
That little bit of a weave is a signal to say that don't worry about me. He's lifting off earlier and braking a little bit earlier, giving a bit of room just between us. So he's not going in for the attack right now. He's just gave a little bit of a heads up of, hey, I'm around, I'm here, hello, nice to see you. But at the same time, is not hunting down Paul Fenter. He's happy and content with the rhythm they're keeping on going at the moment, and it's maybe going to be stretching it out a little bit here. This could be a play on the mind. Start trying to get the driver a little bit more comfortable. Hey, listen, I'm your friend, I'm your buddy. Don't worry about me. But with 6 minutes to go, next time by, going to be a bigger problem. But while doing that, that's just allowed Esteban Pretorius to get a bit closer. So by playing it off a little bit on the cautious side and trying to be a bit more of a friend, that's allowed the McLaren to close up the distance between them. A very interesting call there, something that not quite sure why, but Rowan Kleinans, I suspect the reason he's not putting up the fight is he's got a worry on that dash. There is a light on the dash he's not too happy about.
I'm also quite curious about that, Stephen, because that's normally not something we usually see. Maybe just saying, listen, I'm trying to get to the end of the line. We'll see how this goes, but no pressure from behind. We just hold position. We do like to see fights, but you never know. Might be selling a dummy. We've all done it before. Sell a dummy, see what happens. But Chris Collison backing off again. Lifting earlier, not carrying a flowing state of speed through Tete Rouge as they head onto the first part of Mulsanne Straight. Herman Percival holding a good line and good pace with the McLaren. Chris Collison not able to get closer. Now, I would give anything to be a fly on the wall within the Stingers Racing pit crew, one can say, just to know what is going on in there, as I do have some radio chatter from the likes of Percival's radio, who's sharing the same comms as Kyle Lake. He is about 2 laps of fuel remaining, and he is hoping that it's enough to complete this lap as well as the next lap, and hoping that next lap will be the final lap.
Chris Collison's not happy with aero grip. He's got that car flat, and unfortunately, he's not too confident on a mechanical grip. And that is where it gets a little bit interesting. So whenever it's tight and twisty, the mechanical grip is able to work its way through, but anytime it's sweeping corners, he's on a bit of a losing streak here. He's not too confident that the tires are going to grip up the way that they need to. And I do suspect a couple of drivers are starting to feel that.
I'm also thinking that a bit of fatigue might be coming into place. We just saw a yellow flag there. Question is where? Yes, it's only an hour and 20-minute race, but around a circuit, as we do see flashing lights from Rowan Kleinans, what's going on here? But as we do see, it is an hour 20 race, but around a circuit such as Le Mans, it does still take a lot of focus and concentration out of the drivers in order to keep going full taps, full gear around the circuit as long as fuel allows you. But this is a bit of an interesting one to go there. I might just quickly hop out of my seat here, Stephen, and just go snoop around the pit wall to see what is going on. I'll be right back.
Quick movement round as Rowan Kleinans, quick flash of lights there, trying to get the attention of Paul Fenter, just letting him know he's around and that the two of them need to get going. Esteban Pretorius gaining a lot of time and has closed up at a rate of knots. Herman Percival and Chris Collison also going and fighting out at the moment. Top three, Sean Stratton, Juan Jacobs and Blichnote holding on to first, second, and third. Jacobs holds the fastest lap time of the race. Viertia Buerta in fourth place, got a little bit of room away from the likes of Bjerkes in fifth. Paul Venter, Ruan Kleinans, and Herman and Chris Collison are our two closest fights out there. And once again, Chris Collison braking early, taking a shallower line. He is not happy with that car and hasn't got the confidence behind him to keep pushing. They are concerned about what is going on. But with 2 minutes left in this race, Viertia Buerta into the pits. Viertia Buerta into the pits, missed his pit box, and from all out going fine is now going down the order. Viertia on the penultimate lap is now in pit lane and going to be falling out of the top 5, as here comes Paul Venter along with Ruan Kleinans. Esteban Pretorius is going to snatch it up as well. Viertia Buerta, only rolling right now, is going to be popping out just behind Herman and Chris Collison from being right up there in the top 5. A fuel calculation error has gone and spiked him yet again. 2 races in a row. The darn fuel going and getting Viertia Buerta at the line. My word, what a critical error coming in for likes of Stingers, likes of Bjerkes. He's smiling. He's up into fourth. He's got no one to play with ahead of him, unfortunately, but he has got no one behind him that he has to worry about. Paul Venter is too far back to become a viable threat. Viertia Buerta needs to try and push as hard as he can on this final lap to be able to fight his way towards the sharp end of the field. This is an all or nothing for Viertia Buerta. How things can go completely wrong at a rate of knots. It's just happened out here for Logistical Nightmare Racing Team, and literally became a logistical nightmare for the team.
I just came back quickly, Stephen, from the LMU pit, the garage, one could say. And I can say this, though, that unfortunately, Viertia Buerta, yes, had the fuel issue, but has raced the entire race with a bent front suspension arm. So he has been having some issues with the car, and along with some earlier contact that he sustained during the opening laps with the likes of Bjerkes, unfortunately resulted in damage to the front suspension, meaning he had to go through the pits and get some extra fuel and needing to complete the race. Not how he wanted to have this race. He showed impeccable pace this entire race, so it has gone bad to worse for that side of the LMU pit crew. However, for Shadom as well as Venter, those crews can also be quite happy as they have run it from a race. But to take a look, Herman Percival side by side with Chris Carson into Milson corner. Who's the bravest on the brakes? Is it going to be McLaren? Is it going to be the Lamborghini? The brakes glowing on them as Herman Percival better on the brakes, using the braking power of that McLaren 720S Evo to have a better advantage over the Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2. But the fight's not over. In the background, Viertia Buerta is licking his lips, hoping these two have a bit of contact, allowing him to sneak through and gain 2 positions. But side by side again into Indianapolis, the run-up to Indianapolis. Who's going to be the bravest? Chris Carlson just sneaking ahead. Who's going to be the bravest? Oh, contact! Not what we want to see there. Great battle inside line, around the outside. Chris Carlson taking 8th from the likes of Herman Percival in the McLaren 720S. All the work needs to be done, but that is going to be raced over as we see our race leader, Sean Stradom, crossing the line, claiming victory for the Porsche, claiming victory for LMU here at Le Mans, with Martin Jacobs crossing the line in second, flashing his lights, happy with the result. And in third, RTA, Johan Bluchnoot locking out second and third on the podium tonight. Johan Bluchnoot, brilliant drive in the BMW M4 Evo, crossing the line and taking third.
And you got likes of Bjerkes finishing up in fourth, with Paul Venter breaking the toe to Ruan Kleinans right at the end. Pretorius closed up the distance, but not enough room to go for the pass. However, Chris Collison, Percival, and Buerta going to be fighting their way through. For Viertia Buerta, this is all or nothing. This is go for the inside. This is send it or bin it, and getting close to the bin it situation there, as Percival trying everything. Chris Collison having the drive of his life. Now it's going to be Herman. Look towards the inside, backed out of it, in through the chicanes. It's all about keeping it clean here. Who's got the momentum? Collison just ahead, keeps it tight, flat on the gas, and will come across the line ahead of Percival and Puerta rounding out our top 10. And you can see the frustration as he clips the wall on the way through. I think suspension still not too happy as Grant Leclerc has come across, but it is Kobe Tarodden takes into 11th position behind likes of Vietir Puerta. Carl Lake will finish up in 12th with Neil Greening on across. Hussein Peters a little bit further down, who's got Stanton Augustus keeping Peters company at the moment all the way through to the line. Gerald van der Venter going and seeing it through for the family. We'll have Rob van der Heever, Lucas Jabir, who did see right behind our leader, getting a lovely tank slapper in his Mercedes, finishes up in 19th with Grant Leclerc in the BMW in 20th. Brandon Kruger, despite it all, sees the checkered flag in 21st place, and wasn't quite his race, but was able to see it through to the end. So well done. You see the green, you saw it through to the checkered. I take my hats off to you, sir. Well done. Jeremiah Valatham will be going and finish up in 22nd position, with the likes of Jan Grimal finishing up in 23rd, keeping it stable, keeping it clean, and was the last of our finishers. Mahath Musa, Jody Sederman, Devon Nell, Brandon Holthuizen, Jan van der Venter, unfortunately not able to finish the race due to too much damage on their cars. And that is them, unfortunately, seeing it in the pits. But man, oh man, what a race we've seen. What an interesting time we've seen. And what a run from all our drivers having to fight their way through. I mean, Cam, this has been an interesting race, that has to be said, by all our competitors. And for the hard work, each of the drivers are having to really think a little bit more outside the box.
Oh, no, absolutely, Stephen. And what I like most about this is the fact that tonight, yes, around such a long circuit, we had fights up and down the entire circuit. Strategy coming to play, fuel saving, hoping to make it to the very end, as we saw that Lexus of Arno, not Arno Kraus, apologies, of Ruan Kleinans, just having to be patient in order to rather say, listen, I want to get you, I might have the legs to get you, but I'm rather going to play it smart and just see it to the very, very end. And it had some gut-wrenching moments. It had heartbreaking moments where drivers, unfortunately, having to carry damage throughout the entire race, seeing it still to the very end. And we also saw some contacts between all the drivers, which we do sometimes like to see hard racing, but also not see race-ending incidents, unfortunately. But that is the beauty of Le Mans. And as someone has said in the virtual grandstand, Le Mans, you can't choose to win at Le Mans. Le Mans chooses the winner. So some gut-wrenching moments happening out there, but also some good, close wheel-to-wheel action, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, some incredible racing had by all, and there's going to be a great time. But with that being said, there's still plenty of racing to come through, as we've got some great racing tomorrow night with our EG Evolved ACC GT3 Championship Season 25. We'll be racing their way around the beautiful circuit of Laguna Seca. I gotta say, this is going to be a great time for our drivers to see how far they can push, especially after some of the tight racing we've seen tonight as well, Cameron. So I can't wait to see it. I'm super excited. I know Andries and his entire team from EG Evolve have all been cheering on from the sidelines, waiting for their moment to go and crown their champion for a second time in a row. And at the moment, it is a fight between South Africa and Germany in the pro field.
Oh, of course, some cross-border fighting there, Stephen, but absolutely joining you on that bandwagon. Excited to see the racing that is going to happen there. And it's not just the pro side that is packing the action, it's also the AM and Gold, the AM Gold and Silver side, which will also be out tomorrow live with my beautiful voice filling your ears for that entire stream, and then Stephen going on to the pro side and filling everybody's ears with their ears golden voice. So please make sure to tune in on both streams there to cheer on your favorite drivers, and of course give your support for everyone out there. But that is not the only racing action we have there. We are wrapping up the end of, at the end of this week on Friday is the grading for our iRacing Championship that is starting on the 3rd of March. So if you do want to go out and race out against some of our top iRacing drivers out there, it is not just South Africa, it's also the likes of the UK and Great Britain, as well as I believe I saw an American driver also out there, I might be mistaken, but some good action going out there. Please wrap on over to our RaceFace Discord and hop on over to our RaceFace Discord and go on and get into the links there. Join us on the track there. Sign up on SimGrid there, as you still have some time. So Friday is our grading for our racing side, and then kicking off on the third side. But next week we will be back for LMU once again, as our drivers go on for their next track. But tomorrow, all the action focuses on ACC in our Pro-Am, as well as our Am Gold and Silver split, as the driving over at Nürburgring last week was quite close. It kept everyone out of their seats as they cheered on their favorite drivers. But from my side and Stephen Koenig, I want to wish you all a fantastic well night. Thank you to our sponsors, EG Evolved, for allowing us to bring the action to your living room and having you see the skills that we have out here in South Africa as well as across the world. But from our side and Stephen Koenig, we want to wish you all a good evening, a good night, and good morning, everybody. I don't even know which time you're tuning in, but we'll see you all next week.